This is Things Police See, First-Hand Accounts, with your host, Steve Gould.
Hey guys, welcome to the podcast that interviews active and retired police officers about their most intense, bizarre, and sometimes humorous moments on the job. I'm Steve Gould. Thank you for joining us, everybody. Thank you for all the support I've been receiving. Thank you for the new listeners. Totally appreciate it. I encourage you to go listen to the back catalog of all the interviews. They're evergreen. They age well, and I get messages all the time that people are listening to them and they're really enjoying them, and that I appreciate that. And I really appreciate all the support. Started a Patreon last month. Have people signing on there, supporting the show. This whole show is listener funded at this point, so I really appreciate it. It's a labor of love doing the show, and getting support like that is very encouraging. So if you go to the link in the show notes to Patreon, there's two levels. There's Patreon Patrolman, and then there's Sergeant. Patrolman, you get video of the interviews. A lot of times I do it early. I drop them before the episode comes out, and you also get a TPS vinyl logo sticker. And for Sergeant, for $10 a month, you get a shout out. You get a question answered, a video of the interviews, once again, the sticker, and for both of them, you have direct access to me. You can direct message me, and I write back. And also the Patreon, the software, the way it's set up, it's basically like a Facebook feed. So I post like little behind-the-scenes stuff that's going on at work sometimes, just little extras like that you'll have access to. So if you are a big fan and you really, really like the show, that's the best way to show your support. With that being said, right now it's time for the reading of the Patreon Sergeants. Here we go. These people that support the show, Sergeants on Patreon. I love them. I'm in love with them. Even if they don't reciprocate, I don't care. I'm talking about Paige Edgman, Andrew Horton, Greg Gadboy. Gadbois? Let me know, Greg. The great Ben Peters, Trevor Daly, Rick McCormick, Scott Minkler, Parker Brower, the great Tammy Wall, Sean Clifford, Braden Walker, Sasha McNabb, Corey Payne, the great Glenn Topping, Mike Wynn, Nathan Gowan, Jason Lau, Dylan Pyrozik, the great Sarah Pomeroy, Lauren Stimson, Alex Wazik, Brandon Hooker, Jake Pinito, Joe Shoemaker, James Rose, Seth Wright, Tony Fahey, William James Long, that's Deputy William James Long to you, the great Andy Biggs, Chris June, Adam Mehall, the great Gary Steiner, and the handsome Lane Campbell. Woo, I made it. I gotta extend that sound clip. Those are all the sergeants supporting the show. I really appreciate you. In the future, may have to break that up to like 2 segments or every other show, but I'm gonna shout you out. Don't worry. Love you guys. So today's episode, we have a special agent. We've had a few on in the past. Always a fun interview, maybe a little bit something a little different than your standard police work. He's recently retired from the ATF, where he was a special agent. 26 years of federal law enforcement experience. He's got 45 books, fiction and nonfiction. He's only been retired a year, so we'll have to talk about that. His autobiography, ATF Undercover, details his most dangerous cases involving repeat violent offenders, gang members, international firearms traffickers, and armed drug dealers. Without further ado, let me bring on Ignacio Esteban. Sir, welcome to the show.
Hey, Steve. Thanks for having me. I appreciate it. I enjoy it. Thank you for the intro. Very generous. Very nice.
Oh, my pleasure, brother. And I've got to say, 45 books in a year? What's the story?
Short. I said they're short reads, but they're good reads. I mean, most of them are under a few dollars, maybe mostly of 5 or 6. My autobiography is a little bit more expensive, and it's my longest. It took me, that was about 6 months, because I want to get the details right, the facts right. I want to get the locations, the buys, everything, all what happened. It's not just about, dope and gun buys. It's also about the good, the bad, and the ugly of ATF.
Sure.
Waste, fraud, and abuse. I'll talk about some of that, and I also give solutions to problems we have, which I think can help dealing with firearms trafficking, violent crime, and mass shootings. And I wrote books about that. Most of my books are actually nonfiction. So I start with politics, because my background, I had a degree in political science and history. Okay. I should maybe name the book The Accidental Agent, because In the 90s, I was actually studying my master's at international relations at FIU, Florida International University in Miami, and I was going to go to law school, right? And I started putting in for other jobs because law school is expensive. I would have to get a loan, right? And
Yeah, it
it's going
is.
to end up costing me like 30, 40,000 a year. That's back in the mid 90s. It's a lot more now. And so I put in for customs because I spoke Spanish. I grew up in Miami.
Yep.
I was born in LA, but grew up in Miami. My parents are Cuban. My grandparents are Spanish. So they came because, and I wrote books about this, why we came, the Castro and the Mafia, which is a pretty fascinating book also. I call it the rise and fall of the Mafia in Havana and what happened there. So I've got a lot of interesting books there. So I put in for customs, and because my background spoke Spanish, they're looking people who, because most of the flights to Miami, are 90% from Latin America. So it's good to have the custom officials who can interact with people in Spanish. And it's also good to get these guys who are smuggling, because those who speak Spanish, instead of having a translator, it's the most effective way. So I put in for it, and I got picked up. So I said, well, that's great. I can make some really good money here with customs. And I started that great career, and I'll tell some great stories there. In the 90s at MIA, we had some of the biggest seizures in the country because at the time, the Cali and Medellin cartels were still going strong, and they were pumping their cocaine through Florida and the Caribbean. So you can imagine some of the big seizures we had then.
Yeah.
And eventually I got part of the SET team, which is the contraband enforcement team, and we had some of the biggest seizures again in the country. It was pretty cool. And that led me to meet a lot of people with ATF, DEA, because we're making seizures all the time. And we're handing over the cases and over HSI, FBI.
You guys are
Marshals.
always working together. It's always like a jurisdictional task force going on.
Absolutely, absolutely. You know, it's not uncommon in one day to seize cocaine, to seize weapons, and then to seize counterfeit currency, right? And then you call in 3 different agencies,
Right.
and you're networking and you're talking to people all the time. And I said, you know what? I wouldn't mind taking these cases to a different level, because at the border, everybody's subject to search, right? You don't need probable cause.
Right.
Everybody comes in, you search everybody, and then you look at the information and where they came from, and then you develop what you're questioning, where you're going to take this, where it's going to go, secondary type thing, and that's there on the front line. Being an agent, you got to develop your cases, right? You got to go probable cause, and you take that to a different level. And I wanted to stay with customs, but at the time they didn't want to give up their inspectors to become agents, right?
Oh.
So I was stuck there. So I had no choice. I had to put in for DEA. I put in for ATF and
How
FBI.
hard is that when, I'm curious with the federal jobs, like making a transfer? Do you have to go to their own little school, or do you have to go full FLETC, full their academy?
I did. I went through with customs through FLETC, and then I had to do it again with ATF, basic criminal investigator school, and then the full ATF school. I was in Brunswick, Georgia for a good over 6 months.
Yeah. Wow. So they're not transferring credits then.
No, that was fine. I was ready to go, and it was fascinating. And I was fortunate enough when I got picked up by ATF that I was going to Tampa, because I graduated from school from St. Louis University, which is just north of Tampa. Sometimes you might get the Southwest border, which is brutal. They send you maybe to Alaska. They may send you to New York City, somewhere which is expensive. So at least I stayed in Florida, which I wasn't complaining. I couldn't stay in Miami, which was fine. I'd rather stay in Tampa, and I worked there for 12 years. And the group I ended up working with did a lot of undercover work. So I was fortunate enough to learn a lot from the guys I'm working with, because you just can't jump into that, right?
Yeah, of course.
You got to learn from.
Got to be on the job.
You have to, because that's not something. Hey, most of us who go to school, they say, "Hey, I know how to work the street." No, I went to Catholic schools my whole life, and I take a lot.
You were a nice boy.
I was a nice boy, and I play my sports and all the good stuff, and I had to learn the street quickly. Baptism by fire, right?
Yeah.
And I became really good because I spoke Spanish. I didn't look like this, I didn't sound like this, by the way. I end up in some of the pictures you'll see on my Amazon author page, or if you look at some of the other shows I've done, I had a big beard, really long hair.
Oh, you got to send some over for the cover art for the podcast.
Okay, I will. I got quite a few. My English was broken. I want to make sure they sound like I came from Cuba like 10 years, right? Almost like a Scarface type.
Tony Montana. Yeah, I was going to say.
But long hair, different whole look that guy has. And I spoke Spanish. So that really made it easier for me to really deal with all kinds of people. All kinds, from gang members, you name it, from whatever race to whatever, a lot of Hispanics, a lot of blacks, you name it. It was even easier when they didn't, because they thought, hey, what's my story? So I'm buying guns for these guys. So they don't think I'm going to use them in the area. We want to make sure people understood, hey, these guns are going down south, right? Because that's what the cartels were doing. They have people here buying the weapons, and they're going down south so they can use them. So I want to make sure they understand, hey, none of these guns are staying here. I'm not putting any bodies on them. And by the way, I also buy dope and everything else from, to make some money on that side too.
Right.
So the story worked out really well. So I was fortunate enough to have guys who really worked a lot at UC work. You have to develop your own style. You have to develop your own style. Some guys like to talk a lot. I like to talk, put it out there, but listen, right? Because the jury, at the end, this is about getting evidence, right? Presented to the jury, and the jury wants to hear them talk, not hear me talk. So I want them talking. And all these guys like to brag and how bad and all the things they do and how much weight they can move and how much guns they have and what they've done in the past. And they really want to talk to you about things. They say, hey, man, talk it up.
Sure.
That's what we're here about.
That's what they say, like most major crimes would go unsolved, except people can't shut their mouths.
They can't. They love to boast about it. What's the purpose, right? Like these guys, they want to beat the chest and show off how big and bad they are.
Right.
Yeah. Absolutely.
So I have a friend who works in a border town in Arizona, and everybody's hiring, so they hired her, and she doesn't speak Spanish, and like her life is hell. Like she said, all the other cops speak Spanish, so they'll have full conversations around her in Spanish. So you really gotta, especially if you're a federal agent like a border patrol or customs, you got to be able to do that.
Oh my God, yes. It's I think 99% of the people you're going to deal with are going to be Mexicans or Central Americans, right? In the whole area. So it makes your job a lot easier, and for your own safety, you want to know what they're saying. You're dealing with people that are criminals. They might be saying, "Hey, let's kill this guy," or whatever. You want to be able to hear what's going on around you. That's a tough situation. I recommend that person take some classes.
Yeah, because you're going to be submerged in it for sure.
You're going to be submerged. You better learn something quickly. That's like Miami. You have to learn some Spanish quickly. I mean, you have obviously a lot of the Cubans, but you have a lot of groups of people there too. I mean, now with obviously we had Hugo Chavez, and then you had now Nicolas Maduro, which I wrote a book about that. He's an indicted narco terrorist under the Trump administration. And we'll talk more about that if you want. But you have over 6 million Venezuelans now in the United States, most of them now in South Florida. But it's like major brain drain what's going on. So you got tons of Hispanics, Moldovans. Of course, you got Puerto Ricans, you had Dominicans. You name the group Colombians, you have it in Florida. So I was fortunate enough that in the school system, it's bilingual. So I took classes also in Spanish, and my parents spoke Spanish. So that's why I was able to stay fluent in both languages, obviously English, but Spanish too, which is great. I think it comes in handy. That's
great, man. A buddy of mine from LAPD, he was an LAPD officer. He's a good friend of mine now, but he said his parents are from Mexico, and when they came over, it was in the period when they were like, no Spanish. So, because they wanted to assimilate. So they were like, they wouldn't, no Spanish in the house. They didn't take Spanish classes. But now he's older, and he's like, he looks Mexican. He's like, and most of the LAPD guys that are Latino can speak Spanish. And he's kind of like, he gets like the patriotism type thing, but he's like, I kind of wish I could speak Spanish.
At least understand something. Yeah, no. And my daughters, obviously now it's almost third generation, right? So I'm having them, we're in Virginia. So I have them take, they say, we have a choice, what languages? Say, no, you're taking Spanish in school. And I try to practice with them as much as you can. But if not, they'll be in the same boat. They're going to lose that ability. And it is, I think, the third most spoken language in the world.
It's a no-brainer. Yeah, for sure.
And in this hemisphere, it's the second most spoken language in this hemisphere, or the first. Some say the first. So it's important to learn. I think the more language, the better. Sometimes I try practice, learn some for fun, Italian. They're very similar languages.
Yes.
You travel a lot to Europe. So it's also important to learn some. I think it's cool when you travel a country, you can at least communicate a little bit in that language, right?
Absolutely. I visited my buddy in Madrid in college, and really? his roommate was from Italy, and he could speak Spanish, and he told me it took me about 6 months to get fluent in Spanish because Italian and Spanish was so close. I had no clue they were close at all. But it's a similar. I mean, Europe is, when you go there, it's tiny. It's not like this huge separated area.
That's right. Yeah, it's all part of the Romance languages.
Right.
So I can understand a lot of Italian when I spoke. Certain words not. So when I go to Italy, I speak slow enough I can understand. If I practice it, then I'll do better with it. So, for sure, it makes a lot. And same with Portuguese. Portuguese very similar. Spanish, Italian, a little bit of Romanian. Those are very similar. So, can't hurt. So, that was good. That was good. I learned that. So from there, my career, flourished. I did, I would say at least 14, 15 years undercover work.
Wow, that's a long time.
Yeah, yeah, and it's in the work. It was, but I enjoyed it. I really enjoyed it, and I wasn't like other agencies where you have you're just a case agent, or some guys are fortunate enough to be able to travel, and they have a case agent and they're just undercover. I stayed locally because I had small girls and I couldn't do that, and so what I did was I was the undercover. I was a case agent. I was also the vault custodian, and I did my own workup. So ATF's a small agency, so you got to wear a lot of different hats.
Yeah.
If you want to make these big cases. And so I was one of those kind of guys. So I had the support from the undercover program. I had all my backstops and everything I need to do the job, right? The vehicles, the undercover apartments, everything. But I worked it within the Tampa Field Division, and I worked it within the Miami Field Division. I did 12 years in Tampa, and then I did 7 years in Miami, and then I promoted, went to ATF headquarters, and worked with the command staff over the monitor case program with the most I guess cases are most sensitive that could be a problem based on what happened Operation Fast and Furious. Congress and OIG recommended we have this program so there won't be any more gun walking and any more things that can be handled. So I was fortunate enough I was working with the number one in command in the central region, which is now the number 2 in command of ATF. We finally got a Senate-appointed director, a little ATF politics here. We just finally got Stephen Dittelbach became the first Senate-confirmed director, second one, first one like in 7 years.
Wow. So the Fast and Furious, is that the thing Obama did? Isn't that the thing they say armed a bunch of people inadvertently, like backfired?
Yeah, I wrote a book about that too. It's called ATF, Mexico and the Drug Cartels, The Reality After Operation Fast and Furious. I knew 2 of my bosses were whistleblowers who testified during that. One was an ASAC and one was a SAC who later become a SAC, and I knew other guys who were there. And based on all the stuff that's out there, people I talked to, plus the OIG report, the Office Inspector General report about Fast and Furious, it wasn't. It was really bad idea to let gun walking. So pretty much you have information from the FFLs, Federal Firearms Licensees on the border, right? That these guys, which are straws, so let's say they're ordering, 10 Glocks, same make and model.
Gun shops.
Yeah, these aren't going to be for. It's not for a collector. This is for traffickers, right?
Mm-hmm.
The whole idea was follow the guns instead of taking the guys down and interviewing them. Let them go to Mexico and see if we can trace the guns at crime scenes to find out where they were at. Well, that was a bad idea.
Okay.
That came from ATF management from the Phoenix Field Division and on up. And based on that, it was a scandal, and a lot of those guys lost their jobs. The SAC of my field division was demoted all the way down to like an intel officer.
Oh, wow.
And the United States Attorney's Office, the United States Attorney was fired from Arizona at the end, and guys who were upper management ATF were also fired. So It was a debacle. It was over 2,000 weapons that should have they should have stopped those guys. So that was part what I was doing in their monitor case program, is to prevent things from happening like that again. To make sure if you have a case, active trafficking, are you stopping the guys, doing the interviews, to making sure these guns, still do the investigation, but don't let guns go down south to Mexico and stuff like that. Even though, and I'll say this, I wrote books about the cartels, and El Chapo just wrote one now. We don't have an equal partner in the war on drugs or anything like that with Mexico. It is extremely corrupt out there, extremely corrupt. And I think with the trial with El Chapo, I don't know how much you follow that, which is Joaquin Guzman, who's sitting now in the Supermax out there in Florence, Colorado.
Isn't he the one that drove like a scooter through a tunnel to escape or something?
I put that in there. Yes. Yeah. 1 mile long, 30 feet under. And they said it was so loud, he was even yelling, according to witnesses, he would even say, "You guys are too loud, everybody can hear you." That means everybody's bought.
Yeah.
Everybody is bought. And
Sure.
It was a tunnel. They bought this property, a construction house, so the tunnel can be built from there all the way to his cell, right to his shower. He had his own little private shower in there. He goes right in there. The hole breaks in. He has a little ladder, goes all the way down.
Oh, my goodness.
And he goes right in the scooter all the way a mile. It's a mile long, that tunnel, all the way there, and he escapes the second time.
Insane.
That's the second time. After being a fugitive for 14 years. the most wanted, in 6 months. This one, the 6 months. So allegedly during the trial, witnesses testify that some of the reasons why this was happening, obviously, is massive corruption.
Right.
Massive corruption. That these guys had a fund over $50 million. This is guys in inner circle testifying against him. United States Attorney's Office put him as witnesses. So I'm reading these reports and what's coming out there, saying that these guys had a fund of $50 million to buy off high-ranking officials. $50 million just to buy off people left and right. Boom, boom, like nothing. That's nothing. $50 million for these guys were nothing. Because according to reports, the Sinaloa cartel is making between 12, 15 billion a year. And they're involved in a lot of things.
That's so, $50 million is like, you know, buying a hamburger at McDonald's.
For these guys, it's absolutely nothing. Absolutely nothing. Absolutely nothing. So,
I had a buddy who was on the he's retired now, but he was on a task force in Southern California. And he has this story. I won't say the whole thing, but he was with feds and with other local guys, and they found a tunnel in the house, and they actually decided his lieutenant was like, not a good idea. They went anyways because one of the federal guys was like, hey, I know a guy who work, you know, a federale, whoever works this area. It's cool. So they go over the border and go to the house where the tunnel ends, and they are just almost immediately surrounded by Mexican police. And he's like, they all had to put their guns down, and my buddy's looking at his federal buddies like, are these your friends? I hope. They let him go, but it was like very scary.
Yeah, I don't think I would have done that.
No, it was not a good move.
No, especially with how tunnels are booby-trapped and how many things go on. You don't know what you can encounter. All of a sudden, these guys come waiting for you with automatic fire because these guys have, based on the case I worked, because I did a lot also international firearms trafficking, you know, this is how gun control doesn't work, right? Mexico has some of the strictest gun laws in the world, but guess what?
Right.
The cartels have everything they want.
Right.
From, you know, machine guns to assault weapons to barricades,
surface-to-air missiles.
They do. They name it. They have it all. They have it all. They attack the police. They attack the military. And if you don't play ball with them, this is what they do to you. So either you play games, and it's not like, and I made the comparison between the cartels and the mafia, right? And I wrote books about the mafia because I got into organized crime, and I really compare, you know, the mafia. You have the one percenters, which is the biker gangs, and you know, have other groups, street gangs and prison gangs. But like, let's say the Gambino family, New York family, which was one of the strongest family, right? At the height, they're saying in the 80s, they were bringing in maybe $500 million, like $500 million a year. These guys are killing it. 14, 15 billion a year right now. So it shows where the drug, and even if they get out of the drug game, if Americans and the world stop using drugs, right? That would hurt them a little, but they're involved in so much other stuff too. This example between extortion, between murders, between robbing fuel from oil tanks, pipelines, stealing cargo. They're involved in kidnappings. They're involved in so much, but with the war on drugs, it doesn't look good for us. That's for sure. I don't think, because somebody else always steps it up. And now we have their big rival. He used to be allies to them, CJNG, which is the Jalisco cartel. They're really giving them a run for their money right now. So it's getting really ugly and violent in Mexico, which this is why I'm a big proponent also of building the wall.
Yeah,
because we just
that's the only way to do it. You got to tighten up the border.
You know, I got a fence around my house, right?
Right.
I think most people have to protect their property, right?
Of course.
We got to shut that down, and that's just one. I wish there was a silver bullet, but there isn't. I mean, I've been studying and watching this for years in my career. That's a basic thing we have to do, right?
Yeah.
Then you got to go for the tunnels, because there are a ton of them out there. The network is enormous. If we don't stop the tunnels, then we're wasting our time also, because that's a big problem. And then overstays, because a lot of people fly in and they do a lot of stuff. So it is such a long, complicated, but you have to at least do something. You got to start. Yeah. If not, it's going to get worse.
I arrested a guy on the Cape Cod in Mass, and he was Brazilian, and it was his third time in the country, and he kind of told me how they do it. He was a younger guy. He said, you know, he's like, honestly, I'm not going to come back this time, but this is my third time. And he said, he's like, my family owns a pretty successful bakery in Brazil. I'm happy there, but like what we do is we go up to like Middle America, we go to or Central America, then we go to get up near the border, partying the whole time. He's very candid. He's like, then we make the run over the border. He goes, you get caught. He said, but we got caught, and the border patrol or whoever it was got us a hotel room. They took our names. We had to sign a writ or something that we would leave, and then we just go to Massachusetts. So he said this was his third time doing it. And I was like, this is unbelievable. And he had a Massachusetts asbestos license in his name. The car was registered in his name, but he printed out a driver's license because at the time they would not give them to an illegal alien. And I could just lick my finger and do that, and it smudges because it's from a bubble jet, and that's how I got him. But he was not worried at all. He was like, if I want to come back, I will, but I don't think I'm going to take a position in my family's business. And I was like, you got to figure it out, kid.
Yeah, no, it's a joke. It's a joke. We have to do, and I was with customs, and you see that, and with ATF, and that's a big problem. A lot of people who are here illegally have, because unfortunately, when you go to an FFL, and I write about this in my book, Merchants of Death, how easy it is for firearms trafficking. You get a fake ID. We don't take thumbprints, right?
Right.
So you come with a fake ID, John Smith, right?
We accept everybody's licenses, so how are we supposed to be experts on that anyways?
Exactly. And so they scribbled information from this fake ID, and they're good to go. I mean, you pawn something, at least you got to put your thumbprint, right? I remember helping cases like that. I mean, if we don't do that and we clean up, and those are the guys who are sophisticated. The guys who are not, I mean, there's so many loopholes in our country. You can go to gun shows and FFL at private sales where there's no background necessary. At least, in Florida, in many places, it's cash and carry. It's cash and carry. You go online, you meet these guys. They say, hey, I like your Glocks or whatever SIGs you have for sale. That's me at the McDonald's parking lot. They show up with the guns. Here you go. And they don't give a shit you're a gangster or whatever. They're making their money.
Right.
So that's some of the big problems we have in our country. We need to tighten some of these. So my solution was we got to make it where these guys are doing stuff like that. Straws who are lying for other people buying for guns, or guys who are using fake ID get more time. Because a lot of these guys don't have sometimes a big history. So maybe like a 5-year min man or something to try and discourage them. Because if they're just going to get probation, a slap on the wrist, that's not good either. So those are some of the issues I've encountered being an ATF agent. I just put some of the stuff we talked about, solutions out there to tighten things up, because if not, between the street gangs, firearms trafficking, gun violence, it's only getting worse. Unfortunately, it's only getting worse.
How much I'm curious, how much on the federal level do they lean on or listen to guys that were out there doing it, then make it into, say, middle management or something? Like, how much can you, in your position that you had, affect the kind of the higher ups, the political machine that's kind of happening? Because they have all this experience, all these field agents that actually did the stuff and have solutions like you're talking about. Does it fall on deaf ears, or are they kind of like, hey, my hands are tied, we can't do that? Or
no, well, I expressed my opinion when I was up in headquarters also, and people do also. But unfortunately, it's very political, right?
Yeah.
To pass stuff like this, you need political will. And when the country's so divided, I mean, we couldn't even get a confirmed director for almost 7 years. So it's hard to get things passed, and when a country's divided like this, where once a majority in the House, maybe in the Senate, and they're thinking you can't agree on anything. So it becomes difficult, right? It becomes difficult. So it has to be a will there, especially when defund the police. All that stuff comes around, right. And it's like, we're not the bad guys. Without us, there's going to be more problems.
It's ridiculous.
Not everybody has gates in their homes with armed security, right?
Right. Yeah, that's what they're saying. These wealthy neighborhoods in Manhattan now are hiring. They can afford to hire private security to patrol their neighborhood. It's actually happening. It's like turning into like Venezuela. Like, it's like the rich are going to have their super security, and the rest of us are not going to have any protection.
Well, I'm fortunate. I'm not sure about Massachusetts, but Florida and Virginia, I live in and I'll say I never live in a blue state. I always live in a red state, because and people don't realize ATF agents, believe it or not, most of us are very pro Second Amendment, right?
Right.
We're very pro having your firearm being trained, because, and this is retired law enforcement and other people, don't ever expect the police or home invaders come in your house, right, to come and save you, right?
Right. Yeah.
You're gonna need your firearm to protect
yourself.
There's no time, and most of the response times is going to be over 10 minutes.
Yeah.
And in 10 minutes, there's going to be a lot of damage, and there's going to be a lot of problems. And you need to have your fun. You need to train. You need to have your weapons, because that's the only way it's going to protect you and your family, and be ready to use it and know how to use it.
Yeah.
You may have a gun. If you don't practice, that's no good either.
Right.
They're going to take it away from you or something.
Ironically, the cities where you need it the most are the first to take your rights away. You know, it's like I see city cops posting their call board, and there's like, there are 25 calls stacked, and they're not like barking dog. It's like armed robbery, home invasion, domestic violence, crash. And this is the start of your shift. These have not been handled yet.
Oh my goodness.
And it's like, what's the wait time on that stuff? I had a friend of mine in LA witnessing a carjacking right in front of her in a parking garage. And she just stayed locked in her car for like 40 minutes. And then the police showed up, but they were busy. They were tied up. They don't, you know.
So I said, you can't expect people to save you.
No.
Absolutely. We're a frontier nation, right? Independent nation. People need to understand and protect themselves and their family. Don't expect anybody to come. It's a bureaucracy, and they're overworked, underpaid, and especially with this whole culture that's developing now, morale is bad. You know, people I talk to, it's bad morale out there. Yeah,
people are soft too. You know, it's like I'm working for a little regional police department now out in the Western Mass in the country. You know, for as country as Mass can get. And but people in the country know what it is to leave your house at 4 a.m. with a rifle because a bear is breaking into your hog pen, or into your trash, or whatever. They're familiar, even if they're very liberal. They're familiar with guns. They know they're needed, and they actually know how to do stuff. Like they're not in the city ordering whatever food delivers to you, Postmates and all that stuff. They're at least they have a certain amount of facility, like faculty. They can do some things, like, but people in the city, kids that grow up in the city who I've befriended are like, some of them never even get a driver's license because they're like, public transportation, can't drive a car. They have no idea. Like I've actually heard people say when like come to visit, like out on the Cape or something, and they're like, it's just, isn't it so creepy how quiet it is? And that you can see all these stars, and like to them that's like the reverse of how it should be. They're like, it freaks them out because they're not in like the fishbowl. It's like,
right,
hey, you're not going to make it.
No, it's a different world. I've been in New York City quite a bit, and I've done different details, the UN details and stuff, and working security, and helping these guys out, and I don't even like visiting. I don't like it at all.
Yeah.
It's congested. And then they don't let you armed on public transportation, right? So look at all the shootings been going on in the subways. Remember that mass shooting that just happened a few months ago? Thank goodness no one was killed in this one, but 36 were shot. I mean, it's insane.
It reminds me of the 80s. It's like the 80s again.
Yeah. They need to bring in another Giuliani, right? And
yeah.
House again. And NYPD.
Somebody, I mean, and you know what? The liberals will hopefully do what they did the last time. They'll just look the other way when it gets cleaned up, and then they'll start complaining again. That's what happens. But when I was a kid in the late 80s, early 90s, I remember going to New York City was like a death sentence. It was like they will murder you on the subway. They will rape you in the park. It was like, no go. You don't go there. And then it got better. And then I was able, in the early 2000s when I got out of college and stuff, we'd go down there and party, and it was great. Like Williamsburg and Greenpoint became these like cool hipster areas where there's like good coffee and delicious beer everywhere. No one's, trying to stab you on the subway. But it's like the news clips I'm seeing now remind me of when I was a kid, where it's like stabbed 37 times and thrown in front of a train. It's like, what?
Yep. That's happening. People are getting pushed in front of trains a lot too. Yeah, you're seeing that a lot. You see mental health issues out of control. And I mean, if you don't address all those problems, the seal like that, and then on top of that, they have the mentality where they don't want people being armed. Well, then there's just a society of victimization.
Right.
They're just creating a society of just victimized. So again, I wouldn't be going and I'm retired now. I have to be careful because there's a lot of rules, right? I got my concealed weapons permit, but I can't carry in New York City.
Yeah,
they're making it impossible.
I know there's been case law on it, which doesn't matter because you don't want to go through that. But there's been case law. They've charged police officers that have LEOSA, and they get their guns back, and the charges get dropped. And the ruling is, this is a federal law. It's right in the law that it supersedes your rule. It doesn't mean NYPD won't arrest you.
No, I don't want to do that. Yeah.
So they'll take your gun, and then you got to go to the magistrate and get it all back. But do you want to go through that? You know,
And if you have a high capacity magazine, then they'll charge you also for that.
In New Jersey, hollow points.
Oh no!
I was Googling that. I was like, wait, because I'm active law enforcement, and I was trying to find out. Wait, I know for Leosa they're doing that with like retired guys. They, you know, New Jersey's no hollow points, but I could not find anything that said that as an active police officer from another state that you would be exempt at all. It's almost like you got to put hardball in your gun if you're going to go through New Jersey. It's like, and they're so stupid because hardball over penetrates.
Yes. They
don't understand the hollow point isn't like it doesn't explode in your body. It mushrooms and limits penetration. It's more effective damaging the tissue.
Yeah.
So it's like they think it's like why can't they grab a guy like you when they're doing this legislation? Why don't they call the ATF and say, hey, do hollow points explode and cut surgeons' hands open? No, they don't. The hardball goes through 4 people on the street. So it's like, it's for people watching this happen. I just don't know why they don't use the resources. I mean, I guess I know why. It's politics.
It's political. Yeah. It's political. Yeah. They know. It appeals to their base. And that's what counts. The base wants to demonize the weapon so much. It's just an object, folks. It's an object. You know what we have? It's crisis in this country. And I wrote the book about the worst mass shootings in U.S. history and how to stop them from happening again. It's a really good read. It's my second longest book. And I talk about case studies from the 80s until what happened in a heartbreaking situation. I think we all have seen the video out of Uvalde, Texas, Elementary, right?
Yep.
77 minutes and go in there. It's just heartbreaking there. But, you know, we need to fortify our schools, right?
Yeah.
We need officer resource there because if you have to wait for a response, that's a problem. Or just like after 9/11, what do we do with our pilots, right? Those who wanted to be armed in the cockpit, right? They had to go through training. They're prior military.
Right.
They had law enforcement background. They started being armed, and they boost up the air marshal program. So as an agent, I was like a force multiplier. I would check in with them because I was allowed to be armed in their plane because I was retired. Right. I was an ATF agent.
Like an extra person.
I would check in the pilot, talk to him, hey, I'm in seat so-and-so, whatever. In case something happens, he'll be able to tell them and reach out to one of us because air marshals, there are more, but they couldn't be in every plane, obviously. It's just,
of course.
Too many flights. So it's a force multiplier. And of course, they hardened. Remember how flimsy the cockpit door used to be? You can just push it out. They fortified those doors, right?
Right.
Make it hard for people getting you. So a food cart wouldn't just go in there very easily. And all of a sudden, you had a problem taking over the cockpit. So those are things I think we need to reevaluate in our schools.
Yeah.
And figure out, because we don't want to keep on seeing these situations replay over and over and over again. But we do need a better response. Those kids are unarmed, right? The teachers were unarmed.
Right.
Those guys were armed, right? And 77 minutes. And I know I took the training for active shooter training. Once you start shooting, people are dying. They're bleeding out. You got to go in there and you got to attack those guys. And it's heartbreaking to see that video. And I think the chief was fired over the situation. He made the wrong decision there. And unfortunately, you've seen it before in other times. But I think arming the teachers, those who want it, those who want to go to training, maybe not be a bad idea, because if you had to wait for a response, like I said, like a home invader coming in, who cares more for their students than a teacher does, right?
Yeah, just have a lockbox in the classroom. You just have to carry it on them. Have it in the classroom.
Yeah, quick access to it and respond to it, and at least you have something. Unfortunately, these students are using rifles. Obviously, it's not a fair fight, but in close range, you can at least do something. And at farther range, after you have to take cover, because they got you beat on that one. But it's crazy times we're living on. But it's an interesting read, interesting book, and I write about the case studies, how things go from the 80s and not going in and letting the shooter in there for a while, like a hostage situation, but he's killing everybody, right? You can't be doing that either. To be more active, and we need to go back to that where we're hitting them as fast as we can. And the training that I received was, if you have 2 or 3 people there, the guy shooting inside, it's a tough call, but you got to do it.
Yeah, I mean the most recent active shooter training I've been to was like, especially for rural areas, is even less. If you show up and it's just you run towards the shooting. They said because that's because of things like Uvalde happening, and that whole thing was weird too. It's like they had a school police department and they had this chief, and when you look at this guy's background, he's kind of a Fruit Loop. Like he's not, he obviously wasn't ready for this day.
No, not at all.
but it's like a 5 or 6 man department that just does the school. I mean, it's a team of school resource guys, which, and I'm not downing them at all, but it's like, you know, they weren't ready for that, and I'm not sure they should have been like the lead agency, you know. But hey, you know, that's neither here. That's just water under the bridge.
Yeah, they learn from it. People have to learn from it. And I saw the video, and it's heart-wrenching. I don't know if you saw the interview. The only teacher that survived the shooting. And
no, I didn't see it.
If you see,
I can't watch it. It makes me too upset. It's like,
he was very emotional. He took 3 rounds. He couldn't get up, and he saw 11 kids in his classroom executed in front of him.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, and he said, don't be upset with me. I did everything I could. I helped save your children, but I could hear the officers outside, and they didn't do anything. They didn't come and save us.
Wow.
So, yeah, that's really tough.
Brutal.
That's a heart-wrenching interview to see that.
Yeah. Ignacio, we've been talking for a while, brother. We're under 40 minutes here. Can you take us back to when you were a young agent, your first kind of exciting or tense moments in your investigation? Yeah,
for sure. Before I started doing undercover work, as I said, it takes a little time to get into it, right?
Sure.
So I was working with a street unit at Tampa Police Department, and we're doing pretty much a jump out unit, right? You know, you do street level buys, you check these guys out, and it was fun. I mean, to me, this is the new stuff because I was in customs, and you're chasing these guys, and this was a high crime area in Tampa, city of Tampa. And
sure.
We're looking at 2004, okay? And so what was this unit here? You there quickly, and these are small street buys by bus, right? By bus, you got a warrant, or you a dope hole. Hey, you see these guys just do a deal. You know, you go up, and it was one of those deals. You're chasing these guys down,
quick and
jumping
dirty.
over fences. Yeah, quick and dirty cases. It was crazy, but you know what? They can get crazy and really fast. So
yeah,
it was one of these. This is at night. We've been busy all day, and you're tired, taking it for granted. The whole idea was box this truck in. It's a quick dope buy. Take him down, right? But this guy, and you mentioned Brazilian. That's funny earlier. This guy happens to be Brazilian also in this story, but he ends up being a big fat guy, and he wasn't boxed in right. The cars didn't come in right, and we're part of the cover team. And next time we hear is shots fired, shots fired, shots fired, and because one of the guys who came out to arrest him, he comes at him, so he moves out of the way and he opens fire. But he has a Glock 9mm and against hollow point, so they open up a little prematurely before they get to him, and he's a really fat guy.
Yeah,
so
they can take rounds.
They're blubber shots, pretty much.
Yep.
But he keeps on driving. So we come around the corner, and he comes right at us, right? We're in a Taurus, and he's in an F-150. And he's coming around, and I'm glad the detective was able to move just enough this way. If not, we'd have been head on. And that could have been an ugly day for me and for him. And he hits us on the side. Boom. Like that. And we kept on. And then it was a pursuit for about like 3 or 4 miles. He goes down, and you have like almost a Tampa Police Department chasing this guy, and that's when you're drilling pumping on that one.
Yeah, jeez. How many times he hit the guy though? But in his blubber shot, you said.
He's a big guy. He was like 300 some pounds. A big guy, man. And that's the thing with hollow point too. They opened up early too, and it really didn't do much to the guy. And the guy was driving. And I remember after he had arrested, you could see the shots in his belly and his gut, and it was like. I mean, he was like, man, why the hell would you do that? And they're young. They're stupid, right? They make bad mistakes. They panicked. He panicked, and he just went at that. He could have killed him, too. He could have killed us.
Yeah.
So that got my attention quickly, man. Street cases are fun, but you know what?
They can go bad
quickly. Because these guys are street guys. So I found that to be pretty fun. Another interesting was, and this is now what I'm doing undercover. So that was then. Then I'm involving. This is now like 2009, and is north of Tampa. I used to work a lot of undercover in a county called Pasco County. Mm-hmm. So there's Hillsborough County and there's Pasco County, in case people know, in Florida. And I used to work a lot there. And this was a shady trailer area, predominantly Hispanic, a lot of gang members in there. Mm-hmm. And I was already brought in. I met this guy, and he had a good criminal history. He was a multi-kilo dealer, right? And he was going to introduce me to a source he had in the trailers in the Zephyr Hills for AK-47. We're supposed to have AK-47, a couple of Glocks, some other weapons. So I'm in the vehicle. First time we're really dealing with each other. And we were talking, so I'm driving to stuff. And I should have been more careful, but he opens my glove box just to see if he says, hey, dude, what are you looking for? Oh, I'm just looking, man. I said, no, close that shit up, bro. No,
Yeah, what?
I'm looking through my shit. What are you gonna have in there? So we went to a trailer, and he introduced me to his connections there. They're all Mexicans. There's predominantly a lot of Mexicans in there, Mexican Americans, a lot of gangs. And we're talking. I talked to him in Spanish a little bit. He's not a Spanish speaker, but I think he understands a little bit. He's a big doper from St. Pete area. He's out of Pinellas County, and he was
St.
selling
Pete
dope
is
for a
nice.
while. Yeah, St. Pete, but there's a bad area of St. Pete, South St. Pete, near Tropicana, where the Rays play. South of that it's considered some of the worst areas of Florida.
I'll take your word for it, brother. Never been there, never going.
No, don't go south. Don't park down there. Watch the game. That'll be bad news. Be carjackings? Yeah, there'll be carjackings.
Right.
No doubt. So we're there, we're talking, and he said, all right. And I agree with the price. I think for the AK was going to be 800 something for the Glocks. I think Ola was over 2,000 something dollars for this. And this guy, he has a bad history himself. The other guy's getting gang members. And it's a trailer, it's run down. And he said, all right, why don't you give me the money? I go get inside. And I said, no.
Yeah.
I don't front my money. And I said, I want to see everything. I want to see the guns. I want to see all the stuff. And he's supposed to give me half an ounce of crystal meth. And I said, no. I said, oh, okay. And I could see in the corner that there were more guys coming in through the side.
Cool.
Right? So I'm seeing there's more people in there. I said, no. I said, okay, why don't you come inside with us? 2,000, all that? No, I'm not doing that.
Yeah.
It's going to be lights out for me, and it's going to be bad news. And I said, this is the deal. I'm waiting a truck here that had a truck. It was like a Ford F-150. And I said, I'll give you 5 minutes. And you can find a ride back where I picked you up from. So I gave him about 5 minutes, and all of a sudden, this Hyundai Odyssey shows up. The guns weren't there. So he said, oh, hey, the guns are here. The guns were never in there. So I was going to get ripped or something else was going to happen in there. He said, so I thought the guns were there.
So they're like, we'll do a sale if we have to, but if we can get it a different way, we'll go that route.
Yeah, we'll take a 2,000. No doubt about that. That's one thing, man. That's one. Some guys get hurt quickly, and you got to have that instinct common sense where you got to have eye behind you and you look at all the stuff where you say, bad decisions could cost you badly, right?
Yeah.
You go in there, I think it would have been bad news for me. So he sells me an AK-47 with a 75 round drum. All full rounds, nice, and 2 Glocks, nice, half an ounce, not bad, from a guy who's probably a career criminal.
Yeah.
And so that was a good hit. But it's dicey. You don't know where to push it. I probably would have been ripped, and I definitely am not going to front my money. I've learned from seeing other people. You give your money ahead of time in bad areas, they disappear quickly, and then all of a sudden you got another problem in your hands.
Yeah. I did. I dabbled a tiny bit. When I was a young patrolman, I worked midnight, so the detective was working with state police, and they were like, hey, we got the stolen property case, and would you be interested in, throwing a Carhartt jacket on, some jeans, work boots, driving this van we have, and just pretend you're like, you're working for a local painter, but you're looking for a laptop and a camera and a couple other things, and you're going to meet behind this gym off the highway. And I was like, yeah, cool, totally, I'll do undercover,
Yeah.
So the trooper in charge, who's now actually like lieutenant colonel or something, the state police, but he's a wicked good guy, very, very good at drug stuff. He said, Steve, the only thing these guys know about you is that you're going to have like $1,000. Mm-hmm. So he said, obviously have a piece on you, but he said, what I do when I get in trouble is I run. He goes, just run. He said, if you get your car and take off, or just run out to where we can see you, do that. He said, do not be a hero. Do not, if you can help it, don't draw down. Don't try to fight them. Just get the hell out of there. Beat feet. Wear, maybe instead of work boots, wear sneakers, But I thought that was funny because this guy has a rep for being very tough, and he's mixed it up in the past, but he knows. He's like, don't F around. Don't be a hero. If 5 of them show up to like look at a laptop, why? Why would so many guys come? Like that type of thing.
Or if they put a gun to you, you just give them the money.
Yeah. What do I care? Here you go.
Just give them the money. Yeah, I never had that happen to me, but I've seen other guys. And you know what? I said, all right, you got me drawn down. Take the money, because you know what? We got the resources. We're going to track you down.
Right.
And it's going to be a stronger case. And you're going to be smart about it, too. When to fight and when, like you say, fight or flight. Yeah, that's also important, too.
Right.
Have good common sense out there. And that's one thing I always thought about is different what ifs, right? Different scenarios. What am I going to do if they do this, or if it ends up playing like this? How am I going to act to it?
Yeah, kind of
And
drilling yourself with scenarios.
you have to, and you practice. Also, you practice a lot. What are you going to say to these guys? And I like to. I talk, like I said, I talk enough, but I also want them to talk a lot so I can have good evidence for the jury on how it's going to play out. Because the prosecutors, the federal system, they almost like to have these perfect cases, right? They want the jury to see like a movie where you're
Right.
seeing, you're buying, and you have the video on you and the audio, and it's sounding great. So they get spoiled. And so I always have video and audio, and you try to do the best you can. But it's always, sometimes they understand. Sometimes it takes a crap, right? It doesn't always
Yeah.
work out that way. But you have your testimony. Sometimes they like that. Sometimes they don't like that.
Yeah.
That's the
Yeah.
time we're living in it.
Yeah, they it reminds me of Dave Nadolski came on here. He's a retired FBI agent, and he did he had an informant for a armed robbery that they were setting up, and it's just funny because you think feds, you think like high tech, best equipment possible, everything's taken care of. Well, he had the only recorder they had in the Boston field office was this old tape recorder, and
No way.
after an hour, it clicked when it stopped, like loud, like click. So he told the guy, he's like, how long is this meeting going to be? He's like, I don't know, half an hour. He goes, well, don't let it go over an hour because this thing makes a loud noise when it stops recording. I was like,
No way.
that's what the FBI gave you to use? I mean, this is early 2000s, but still, it's like they had digital recorders.
No, we had a lot better than that. We always had good. That's one thing with ATF, and we pride ourselves doing a lot of good undercover. I mean, we've done some of the big famous you see, especially with the one percenters, bikers, gang members.
Yeah, Lou Velosi did the biker stuff.
He did some biker stuff. I read home and did storefronts. I did with my apartments, which almost was like a storefront because I had an apartment which wired up with video and sound, which is great. With the cover team can hear everything, and had these guys show up. One guy, he was a piece of work. This crew, I was buying guns, and I'll back up a little bit, give a little background on the guy. His name is Chino, all right? And he's a Cuban guy. The other guy's Mexican. He's an older guy. And back in 1980, he was involved in the chase with City Miami Police Department, right? He had dope in the car. They were chasing him. He was driving, and he had a passenger side. And it was high pursuit through the city. And he hits the brakes, and all of a sudden the officers, I guess, were leaning over the door. They fall out of the vehicles. And he positioned a certain way where the passengers can open up on him, right?
Ooh.
So he doesn't kill him. Shoots him, but doesn't kill him. And so they catch the guys like a block or two later, but he gets hit with attempted murder. Attempted murder on two Leos, right?
Yeah.
And he already had attempted murder on other people a year earlier. So this guy's he's a career criminal. He should have got, in my opinion, at least life, but he ended up getting 30 years. But he ended up doing less than that. That was 1980. Now you fast forward to what was 2010, 2011. I get a phone call, right? And it's a guy I was dealing with from Zephyr Hills area, Dade City, which is in Pasco County. And I had read about dope and guns. He had a good criminal history. He turns over the phone and says, hey, listen, I got my buddy Chino here. We got some hot guns for you. And I said, oh, yeah? Yeah, let's talk to you. So we're talking Spanish. And he tells me he has hot guns, have to move quickly, all different kinds of calibers, rifles, handguns, you name it, like 16 of them. I said, okay, give me a couple days. How much? We negotiate price. I said, good. He knows where to meet me. I've got my apartment. Let's meet my apartment. Because I have to buy myself time, right?
Sure.
Somebody I want to identify. I got to set up the apartment right. And the apartment looked good. I mean, it had furniture. I had everything in there. Like I was living in it. I had a refrigerator full of food. I pretend to eat, all this stuff to make it look like, I deal a lot out of that place. And it had great sound, video, audio. So you give them the movie presentation. This is 2000. I had that from 2010, 2012. Then went to Miami. So I used it a lot. It worked out well. So these two guys show up. Chino is in a truck, and the other guy is in a car. They even have. I said, "What do they have this dresser in the background?" I was looking at it, and they said, "What's in the dresser?" And they said, "Oh, all the guns are in there." Really? And I said, "Okay." So they bought that. They brought a dolly in the other vehicle. So they bring the dresser, real heavy, and they bring it inside the apartment. What they did was they took out the drawers and they had the tops, and they sealed the tops to the dresser. So they said, if anybody stopped us, they couldn't even open it. and it's just heavy in there, and they wouldn't think anything of it. So they were
Yeah.
smart that way, try to conceal the weapons. So that's what they were doing. So everything, open it up, crowbar, pop, 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 pop the tops out, and they start taking guns after guns. And the guy, remember, he's a career criminal. He's handing me the weapons from there to me, from there to me. And I'm looking at him. We have pistols, rifles, shotguns. I said, oh, very nice. I put them out there. I put them in the corner. They take the dresser back out. And I'm thinking to myself, I wonder if this guy, I'll backtrack a little bit. Before the deal, I met with a detective from Pasco County who worked with us a lot. And he said, hey, do you know anybody in this area, Hispanic guy, Cuban guy, it sounds like he's in his 50s, that might hang out with this guy here who I've been dealing with? And he goes, well, you might want to check this name out. And he showed me the picture. I said, okay, I'll keep that if I see him.
Right.
And I knew his history, attempted murder on Leo's. You have other murders, home invader, you name it, this guy has done it all. He shouldn't be out. He's a menace to society, no doubt about it. So he comes back, and I said, well, I wonder if he's going to talk about what he did with the city of Miami. Because, the guys like to boast and talk, right?
Sure. And
everything in there. He sits down. I sit down with the other guy, and he starts talking to me. He goes, hey, if you like guns, I can get you AK-47s. I like this area better than Tampa. And then he starts boasting about back in 1980, I was in a shooting with the city of Miami. They couldn't kill me. They tried to shoot me. I shot at them. I got out, and he started bragging all the stuff that happened. So, all right, keep on talking. I'm recording you.
Yeah.
That's going to play out nicely for the jury.
Sure.
He left. The other guy left. A few weeks later, we took these guys down, right? And I got a lot of gratification out of this case. He had to do his state time, and the guns actually were – so to give you the audience a little bit, you have to be careful sometimes. These guys had a window company, right? So what they would do, they would tell me, and later in the interview, they would look for empty homes, pretend they were working on them, and then go in the back and come in and clean out the house, right? Take all the property and guns and whatever they could out there. So be careful. If you see a truck parked on a driveway that says, some sort of work company or window company, are they really working there, or they're looking to clean out your house and do some other things? So, let's just be careful. That was their MO, and they were very successful at it. And the guy they took the 16 weapons from, firearms, he was a prominent member of the community who worked for the sheriff's office.
Oh.
So, yeah.
Yeah.
So they were happy that I was able to do this. So he ended up doing his state time first. And with a federal case against Chino, he ended up getting 30 years.
Whoa.
So pretty much a life sentence for that guy. Because he had to do his 10 years first. So he's pretty much 60, 70, 80. He's not going to – it's going to be mid-90s if he ever gets out.
Yeah.
So
damn.
That gave me a lot of satisfaction.
Absolutely. Ignacio, we're almost an hour. Can we take like a 5-minute break for a second? Is that cool with you? I'm gonna run upstairs. I'm gonna ditch this sweatshirt. I'm starting to sweat, but I have a couple more questions for you that I want to ask. But the interview is going awesome. I love it.
Thank you, man.
Ignacio, can you tell us about like a really strange or odd thing you dealt with in an investigation?
Yeah, I was thinking about that, and what came to me was, with customs, when I first started in law enforcement, we dealt with a lot of strange things, especially with traffickers coming in and how creative these guys get, especially from Colombia, when you're dealing with the Medellin Cali cartels and how they push that. And I thought the most dangerous and insane way to bring drugs in, and you can bring quite a bit in, was guys who were swallowing, the pellets, right?
Yeah, like the balloons or whatever.
Yeah, I mean, with cocaine or heroin.
And they swallow a ton of them, right?
Hundreds, sometimes. Hundreds. That to me is so strange and bizarre and so dangerous, because if it's leaking, especially heroin, we get a lot of guys who are dead on the plane, dead on arrival.
Right.
They were coming in, someone else is dead, and I said, oh my gosh. And, we don't catch them all. But I became, before I joined the SET team, the contraband enforcement team, I was part of the Rover team, and we were focused on that also. And I became good. You have intelligence. Certain areas, right, that's predominant in Colombia or different airline agencies or whatever they use. But you can smell on their breath. It makes no sense. The latex, you can smell it. And especially a lot of them use the sports drinks like Gatorade or something to help push it down. because it's not easy, reflex and all that, to push that down after and after and after.
I struggle with like a big vitamin, you know. I can't imagine swallowing a tube full of heroin.
No, man. And these guys, I mean, either some of them are peasants that get used, or some of them do it for money, but it's not easy because even the ones we catch, it's a process. You have to take them to the local hospital. We got to give them laxatives. They got to push it out. And some of them can't. It still doesn't come out. So they have to have surgery. And then they have to have it removed.
Yeah.
But let's say that happens to you. You say you did make it, right?
Yeah.
And these cartel guys, you go to a cheesy hotel in Miami, are they going to wait around days for you? No. What happens when you find a lot of people who are gutted, they get shot in the head, and they gut them, and they take their product. They're not going to wait around. So if you have issues passing them, it's bad news for you also.
Yeah, you become the vessel. Like you're the product.
That's it. You're done. They don't care about you. These guys, and you can see what cartels do to people. They use and abuse like you can imagine. So, and these guys are peasants. They mean nothing to them.
Yeah.
They get used. You dress these people up. You trap them in a suit. See, they fit in, but you can see their nails, right?
They look
you
off.
can see they work the fields. You can see this is not them. And you start talking to them. It's like, why are you here? What are you doing? Your story doesn't make sense.
Please help me. My butt is full of heroin. They made me do it.
They made me do it, and it's brutal passing it and going through there. I think if your audience wants to take a look, there's a lot of pictures and stuff out there, and you can see the X-rays, right? Look at these X-rays and cavities full of all these pellets inside you.
Wow,
insane. I think that was, and I was just in my early 20s, and I started seeing that. I said, man, people really go out, and there's so many other ways to put it. Also, I mean, they had guys who were stuffers, right? They would have inside there. Or some women with vaginals.
Yeah.
Inside, and I mean, it's you name the body cavity, they'll put the dope in there. Try and get it in. It's that to me was like bizarre, insane world at the airport. What the freak show that you saw coming in.
Right.
Unbelievable. Yeah. So that was, I thought that was pretty interesting.
Wow. Are the dogs effective with that at all or no? If the bags don't break, but they're inside of them, they must not pick up on that.
No, they don't pick up on that. They would pick it up if they put it on their shoes, maybe. Sometimes they would sew it on their clothing, right?
Yeah.
They have a jacket that's a little heavy, and they would try and line it up on their clothing. That will be it. Some people would even try to put it on their kids' shoes, right? They'll try to be a family and pass it in, and they'll put the dope inside their kids' shoes.
Father of the year right there.
Yeah. Parent of the year, huh?
Piece of garbage. Wow.
Garbage.
So for the U.S., now that we have all the machines, like that they do the whoop thing when you go through, obviously that should see it, right? Those I've never seen what the screens look like, but
yeah, that was before. That was I was in the '90s. We didn't have that.
Yeah,
but I could imagine maybe that would help. I'm not sure. That would. I'll be interested to see how that would look.
Like, sure. Yeah, I ate a bunch of apples whole. That's not what it looks like.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I know a kid's brother in the 80s who would run dope to California from Boston.
Wow.
And he would just go with a carry-on. Straight up. He said it was a gamble, but he did it a bunch of times and never got caught.
And the dope was in the bag?
Yeah.
Wow. That is crazy.
He just carried it on a plane. Like, he hid it somehow, but it wasn't like nearly enough from whatever the story was, like how he hid it in containers or whatever, but it was like the 80s. So it was like, there was a lot of fast and dirty security. They just shoot you in. That's
true. I remember we could almost go right to the gate, without any security, right?
Yeah.
Remember that? Right
yeah. My father said he's a retired police officer, but he was a local cop and he could fly with his gun. He would just, I mean, back then, but now the states have standardized law enforcement IDs. Like Massachusetts, there's a Massachusetts police officer's ID. It looks like a mass license, standardized. But back then, they used to make their own on the bubble jet. They laminated, hey, Lieutenant, this department, whatever. You could just take your department ID that you literally made yourself, if you were like in management, and then you could go on the plane with your gun. There was no like, the badge and the ID was good enough.
Yeah, you can't do that nowadays for sure.
I think only feds can fly. Yeah. Like, even like I used to work in the Cape with federal park rangers, and they could, and I get it. Like, you don't want to, like, at least if it's within the federal system, you know what kind of background is done. You know, it's like a little bit easier to vet. You can't just open it up to every police department because there's just too many cops, and there's too many, and there's knuckleheads too,
Yeah. I think the only way is if they were in a task force, right? They're working with us. Federal, I saw that.
Right.
And maybe a special letter exemption, but from the chief of the police department or the sheriff's office. But, rarely did you see that. I think a lot of times it was not seen. They would be unarmed. But for us, yeah, it was and the only thing I liked about it was, A, you're armed, that's great, and B, you skipped the big line.
Yes.
Yeah,
and you get to meet the captain, right? Or the pilot.
Yeah, we have to.
Yeah.
We have to meet the pilot. We have to be captain there. And that way they see us, the co-pilot, and also people working the plane, the stewardesses also. I would say, hey, I'm a Leo, something. Hey, Mr. Leo.
Yeah, that's great. I met a air marshal at a Christmas party years ago. It was a big cop Christmas party, all different agencies there, and he was like a badass, like he was like a special forces guy, and
Nice.
he's like, he's like, it's the most boring job. He goes, I'm gonna go to a different agency. He said it's just a ton of nothing. Like, those guys, they just fly on commercial flights.
Yeah, 99% nothing till you hit that 1% flight, right?
Right, exactly. Yeah, so
shit hits you flying.
for him, he was relatively young, high speed guy. He was like,
Oh yeah,
they were really looking for agents, and so they really had an expedited. They were trying to fill spots, so he took it. But I said, hey man, you're in the federal system now, so you got some cred. Transfer to like you guys or someplace where there's a little more action.
Yeah, a lot of action there for sure. Yeah, that's a job. You see the opposite, guys who did, and then they go there when they're retiring.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. That was actually an idea my dad had for retired guys when the schools were looking at, how are we going to get like smaller places, smaller counties and towns? How are we going to afford a SRO? And my dad kind of floated that to them because he's a retired lieutenant, and he said, hey, there's a lot of retired cops around that have grandkids in these schools. They're still of working age. They're capable. They're capable of qualifying with their firearm. They have 30 or 40 years of law enforcement. We do it for like a low hourly rate. Go in, have lunch with our grandkids, walk around the school for a few hours, have maybe 4-hour blocks of doing it. But they were like, no, that's, we can't. It's got to be an active or a current police officer. And I don't know. My dad he was like, okay, well, whatever. He didn't really care, but it's like, it's like you ask for solutions, but then you throw up all the walls.
We need solutions because it's going to keep on happening. We were talking about that earlier about mass shootings. I like that. I like, if you have volunteers, you need, if you don't have the resources to have resource officers, but at the same time, it's a good point. I was talking to somebody else in this show. Sometimes the guys who do the resource officers aren't the most gun-ho guys, right? They're the guys who don't want the action.
Right.
And you remember the famous, what happened in Parkland, right? In South Florida, where, Cruz has a assault rifles type weapon, right? And he's shooting students inside. The teachers are trying to jump in. They're getting killed. He's calling it in, but the resource doesn't go in and do something about it.
Yeah.
You got to go in and address the guy.
It's
unarmed.
Yeah, it's a position. It's a stepping stone position. Like a lot of guys take it to then go into investigations or go into sergeant or something to, because a lot of times they need to fill it and you're kind of helping management out. That's a big thing with it. There is I know some people that are just really into it. They really like kids and working with kids and making us look good. But you're right. A lot of times their strengths aren't street strengths. They have strengths in a different area, and that's what draws them to SRO. That's why some guys are drawn to detectives, some guys court, some guys stay in patrol their whole career because they just like mixing it up. So you're right. You might not have. Now you're going to have a person who's alone, by themselves, and they're responsible for this, like possibly one of the scariest scenarios you could ever encounter.
Horrific scenario. And you got to go in there, and the guy has a rifle. Again, before, it's not a fair fight. And these kids are coming with rifles because in Florida, until recently, it was 18 and over, right? You can buy your AR-15 rifle and go and do the thing. Now they push it 21, but guess what? You can buy it in the street anywhere. You
Right.
go online, you buy everywhere. You go to gun shows. It's kind of you have these laws, but there's so many workarounds for everything. I mean, maybe being an ATF guy, I know every workaround I think there is.
Yeah, we're. I mean, it's a free society. We're an open. Everything's a soft target. You can't, unless we want to become like Israel and do heavy security. Do you want the freedom of of this country? But then, I don't know. It's such a rabbit hole to go down. But it's like the feminization of men and young boys and the demonization of, male things and masculinity, and like it's all being perverted into video games, and you're getting these kind of feminized, bottled up school shooter people. Like if you look at all of them, none of them they're not like a masculine looking kid. It's always like a very like girly boy, like someone who was in the basement killing people on Xbox and was an introvert and was told being a white male is bad. That's a bad thing. That's a shame on you type of thing.
Sandy Hook. They're copying the Sandy Hook type.
Yeah, they're like repressing. It's like this kind of violence is unprecedented. It's bizarre, and I don't know what the answer is, but I think it's a lot to do with our culture. And
I think a lot of it, and I did a case study on that, is that we have a crisis with mental health in this country.
Yes,
all these guys had the same component. They had mental health issues.
Right.
And they were not not everybody with mental health issues. I'm going to say this because I did a study. I talked to a psychologist who's a friend of mine, and I talked to other people who said, hey, you may want to read this articles and take a look at this. Not everybody with mental health issues is going to do this. But what triggers people with mental health issues to do this is those who have either been victimized domestic violence or have committed domestic violence. And you've seen that trend. So that targets, that snaps them into this mode. The kid from Sandy Hook, he was in a dark place. Well, I was reading about his mom didn't get him the help he needed. His room was always pitch black, playing games, isolated, didn't have any friends, right? He was in a bad place. Mm-hmm. And his mom was a gun enthusiast.
Adam Lanza.
Yeah. And then he uses her guns like it. He steals her guns, right? He didn't go anywhere. He just takes her gun. And he puts 4 bullets in her head when she's sleeping. That's what he does to mom. And then he goes to the school and kills all those kids.
Right. It's horrific.
And here's another thing people don't know as an ATF agent. Now it's in headquarters. Our FFLs, our federal firearms licensees, they have big issues of protecting their merchandise. A lot of these guys leave it overnight in the counters, right?
Oh, really? They don't put it all in the safe at night?
They should. I would. That's just me. If I had a business, I would do that. But a lot of them don't, and we have a lot of thefts, a ton of them. I'm unprecedented because these guys. It's a lot of work. I get it, but if you're in that business, you got to do it. I'm sorry because these guys come in the morning, they're checking out. Oh, this guy doesn't put stuff away. Oh, okay. I do a lot of these cases too of filth thefts, burglaries. So what do? They come in, they ram their cars, or they have a truck. They pull out the doors, right, and they clean house for about 2 minutes before anybody shows up, and off they go.
Yeah.
Right?
Like Schwarzenegger in Commando. He gets the rocket launcher.
So FFLs. So you know what? There's so many workarounds. You can steal guns all the time. Burglary, home invasions, right? I was talking about that one guy, Chino, going out there. It's so many ways. You can put all these gun laws, and then the worst thing is, and another thing I realized is with my case study with a book is these gun-free zones don't work, right? Gun-free zones. Look at Virginia Tech with Cho. They pride themselves of being a gun-free university. So you know what that means? That means students weren't armed to prepare themselves, and they got executed in the classrooms because this guy had pistols, but he had high capacity magazines, and he was quick at reloading.
Yeah,
and he was just shooting and killing a lot of students in there, over and over and most of these guys are cowards, and when confronted by the police, they commit suicide.
Right.
So lesson learned is you have to confront these guys quickly. Cho committed suicide. Lanza committed suicide. Some will fight you. Sometimes it happens. The guy from Las Vegas, Steve Paddock, that's a bizarre story. That's still the worst mass shooting in U.S. history.
Yeah,
how he sets up a sniper style. I mean, this is if you haven't seen the video of this here, it's unbelievable.
Yeah,
but by the end,
there's a lot of conspiracy around that because of the way it went down and the amount of ammo we had.
Yeah, I know. The guy was a gun enthusiast, no doubt. And he's the reason why the bump stocks are illegal now, because he had bump stocks on his rifles to make them shoot faster. But you know, you pull your trigger fast enough, that's like an automatic, right?
Yeah.
As quickly as you pull your trigger, right?
I've always felt like a semi-auto is all I need. I mean, a semi-auto AR, just as fast as you can pull the trigger, rounds are coming out. It's
that's good. That's good. And you put a sight on it. You tack it out right. You defend your family. You have good range on it.
Yeah.
And of course, have your handguns too. I have quite a few handguns also. Protect yourself and family, and you need so. But that's what he did, and he tacked it all out. But when he was confronted, he committed suicide, right? So a lot of these guys don't want to be captured. They want to cause as much carnage and go out, but you have to go out there and quickly. I think it would have been better if Ramos would have been confronted sooner, no doubt about it. I think they could have saved some of those kids.
Which one was Ramos?
From Robb Elementary, from Uvalde, Texas.
Oh, okay, Uvalde.
Yeah. So, yeah, those are some of the things. We can talk all day, but I think for every problem, like I said, gun-free zones don't work. They just
right, because only law-abiding citizens follow them. So
and these guys don't. And remember, I've been interviewed a lot by these criminals, and also talking to people. They look for soft targets like that.
Yeah, you're saying a lot of criminals have podcasts?
Yes. I've been interviewed quite a few.
That's so interesting to me.
Now. They're reformed. Former criminals.
Right.
Former criminals, former gangsters. And I've done a few of those too, which is fascinating, interesting interviews, back and forth, talking to them. And they give me their perspective, how things should do. But that's one thing they said. They don't go to a bank with armed security. One guy was telling me straight up, no, I'm going to the bank. There's no security.
Right. There's plenty of banks with no armed security.
Plenty.
Go to one of those.
Yeah. Just like convenience stores or anywhere you're going to rob. No security, that looks better. And then you have the stupid signs that say, no guns, you cannot be armed. So isn't that the worst? You go to these restaurants and they say, you can't carry a firearm in here, private property. So they want your money. They won't protect you, but you go in there and it's going to be bad news.
Yeah.
Because these guys are coming in because they know that. And they take note of that stuff. Trust me, they tell you that. That's what they look for. So it makes you, that's why I said, I don't even like to visit blue states.
I don't blame you, man. I don't blame you. My whole family's from here. We looked at, we actually took a trip to Tennessee, and
yes,
we really liked it. And it's just hard. It's once you're burrowed in somewhere. The good thing about us is my wife homeschools.
Oh.
So she homeschooled our three kids. So we are pretty mobile. So we're, we could go to a red state eventually. But once your kids have friends and your family's here, it just sucks. It's just like, my group of friends is just mostly conservative Christian people that are just like, what are we doing here?
I don't know how you live in. Yeah, it's getting bad. And like people in New York City, are there any conservatives left in New York City?
I have a couple of friends that are, but that you can't share that with anybody. Like especially in the business world, you can't. You just shut up. You don't if there's a conversation, no opinion, and they know because you're not talking about it. They know you're conservative, but you need to shut your mouth. If you start opening your mouth, you could lose your job. In good jobs, they're very, it's very tribal.
That's not for me.
It's here's a problem we have now. Whereas Boston Children's Hospital, my daughter goes there, and they have started doing drug treatments and surgeries on children that have said they're trans. So, not a fan of altering a child. I think most people are not. But now this is a state-of-the-art hospital that is very good, and my daughter's all hooked up there with a doctor, and we're feeling like we don't want to go there anymore. We don't want to give you our money. We don't want to give you our insurance money. We don't believe in that.
What's the age are they starting doing that now?
They have different age limits, but they'll do well under 18. There's hysterectomies and all kinds of stuff, and it's if you just think about your brain when you were 16, then your brain when you were 18, and then your brain when you're 30, you were three different people. To sign off on doing that to your kid, to me, is, it's a moral dilemma. But that's things are getting worse, and those are the things that are walling us in. It's like,
and how about issues with the bathrooms, right? Can people who have these changes go to the other? Now they become whatever. They go to the opposite bathrooms now.
Right? Yeah.
I don't like that at all.
There was a gym in LA where this crazy guy was going in. It was an all-women's like Jewish gym, and just for women. And he was going in there, and he was like, I identify as Susan or whatever. And he would go in and get naked in their changing room. Well, they couldn't do anything about it. And then they kicked him out, and he sued. And when this all happened, all their members stopped going. So it's like this one jerk, like, because he's crazy or doing it intentionally to prove a point. I don't know. But he ruined the place. For these women just want to go be with other women when they work out and not be looked at by men. I get it. Have your club. That's fine.
Yeah.
So it's like stuff like that that's just like, I don't know.
And you'll see more and more of it. It's going to only get worse because, like you said, certain blue states, they're accepting it. They're encouraging it. They're promoting it. So this is what you're going to see, And a big issue, of course, is abortion too. That's a big one. Red states, blue states, and what's coming out of it. So, yeah. But going back to gun protection, gun control as an ATF agent, retired, does not work. Does not work because bad guys, and you can talk to these guys, you can see the shows, you can listen to them. In my experience, you can find guns anywhere.
Right.
Guns anywhere. And people don't care. Cash and carry, here you go. They'll sell it to you. They don't care. So what you're doing is, like I said, you're victimizing society. And if you don't know, train yourself. Take the classes. Because I said, being law enforcement, like I said, in police, it's going to be 5-10 minutes at least before anybody gets to your house. Yeah. You don't want your family being executed or killed in front of you, and you have to live with that, right?
Yeah.
Those are things you have to live with and deal with. And as a father, you want to protect your children against these. And there's a lot of bad people out there, in carjackings or anywhere. I mean, the other day I was at my daughter's school, private school, expensive school, right? And we just finished picking up from cross country practice, going in the parking lot, and I see these two yelling at each other, and one guy has a bat in his hand. I was like, oh, this might get ugly in a second. What's going on here? So I guess all the parents got involved. And before I got out there, and the guy dropped his bat, but over, what's going on the field, the kids' baseball games or whatever. Yeah. Sometimes the parents lose their tempers. It's a game. And you're paying all money, but you don't know. You pay a lot of money, go somewhere, doesn't mean it's not going to be violence. Yeah.
My good friend of mine, they live outside Boston in a very nice area. His sister and her roommate were tied up by assailants that broke into the house and robbed. Thank goodness that was all that happened. They didn't violate them, and very good-looking girls. They just tied them up and they robbed them. But that was in a nice area like that because criminals know where to go to do stuff like this. They branch out. Like I work kind of in the sticks in the country, and it's like they know there's a lot of summer houses. There's a lot of places that are unoccupied. There's a lot of great thieving to be done in places. And we have, where I work, we'll have one cop on for almost 60 square miles. You could do almost anything.
You definitely have to be armed. Like I said, we're a frontier nation, independent people. You have to protect yourself. And the people who don't believe in guns, who think guns are evil and bad, you're going to wish you had one when some bad thing's about to happen to you.
What they need to realize is the heart of man is evil and bad, and then they should go get a gun.
Yeah, I mean, and these are maybe the same people that may go in bear country without a weapon. I don't know. I mean, how do you go hiking without having firearms protecting yourselves? I mean, that's a good thing now with federal parks. As long as you retirees and law enforcement, you can carry your weapon in there. You need to. Yeah. I don't want to go out there without having a bear come at us and have to deal with that, right?
Oh, we have where I live, and we have 400 or 500 pound black bears. And if I go for a walk, all country roads, no houses. I have I think it's called a Country People or Hill People pack. They're awesome. You should check them out. It just goes right here, and then it enables you to wear a backpack too. So it's like a front pack, but you just pull it, and your gun's right there.
Oh, I like that.
I always carry it because it's, you go for a walk or exercise. You don't want stuff around your waist or jammed in your waist or all that. This just sits right here on your front.
Yeah.
I always have it because you're so out there in the wind. I mean, you're out in the woods. I mean, if you stumble upon Mama Bear and the cubs, and these cubs too will run up to you. They do weird stuff because they're babies. Mama doesn't care why they did it. She just knows you're near the baby.
And she come after hard. She's
gonna F you up. So, she'll leave you alone when she thinks you're dead, and hopefully you can get a call off or crawl to the street. So I'm with you, man. I'm just glad we don't have grizzlies anymore. The black bear's enough. I don't need a 1,200 pounder.
I don't think they're 400. Black bears I've seen, I don't think are 400 pounds. They're smaller ones. Thank goodness. They encourage you to fight them.
Oh, really? So they don't get that big there?
They encourage you can fight them. You can fight them. They encourage you to fight. Hit them in the nose. Do everything you can. Gorge them in the eyes. Get them away from you, and just and make a lot of big noises. You're going to fight them. You're not going to be easy for them.
They have very small brains, and they're very skittish. Like the ones I've dealt with on duty, like in people's yards, I just hit the air horn, and they are like deer. Cool. Boo! See you later. They are freaked out.
Yeah, good.
Absolutely,
good.
Ignacio. I'm taking up a lot of your time here, brother. I really appreciate it, man. I got one more question for you. Can we talk about one of your most intense moments in working for the ATF?
Yeah. I was thinking. I guess, and this was early again in my career. Undercover work's different, but this was a different situation. This was back in 2002, October, and the audience may remember we had the DC snipers, right?
Oh yeah,
and they were causing havoc up in the Beltway. They had already, and we didn't know at the time. They already started killing, starting from Washington, working all the way through Louisiana, Alabama, Florida, and making that way. They were in a shooting spree, and they hadn't linked it yet together until ballistics later at the scenes. That these guys had killed within 15 hours in D.C. area, Virginia, Maryland, D.C. 6 people, injured 7. It was it captured the country and what was going on here. So we respond. ATF has a huge response. We go out, FBI, everybody's out there, and it's intense. But we also had bad information. We're also chasing surveillance for the white van, block van they were supposed to be involved in,
right?
And it wasn't. They were in a Chevy Caprice, a 90 Chevy Caprice that they had set up sniper style, where they had a hole in the back. They could be prone in it like a sniper's nest. They would take their shots and they'd sit quietly.
Oh, like out the trunk, they had the back seats down so they could go out the. Oh,
yes,
wow.
It's nasty. And a hole right through the back.
Yeah.
And they put it out there and they're fire, and they were going for headshots. Mohammed and Malvo. Mohammed, prior military guy, he had used his stepson to do all these horrible things, train him to shoot headshots on his victims. Really bad things. And that was an intense situation. People were paranoid. They were scared. I was out here. We're doing surveillance.
I remember that.
Yeah, we're set up on the payphones because he was calling Chief Moosehead, Chief Moose, right, from Maryland, and he was giving these cryptic messages. I was part of some of the briefings. We were trying to figure out, and the profilers got it wrong. They were saying, "Oh, these are white guys, probably with military background," and it was the complete opposite what we were dealing with. So they had everything was wrong in that case. Nothing fit the pattern with that one. And I remember listening to some of the calls. FBI, I was in the Richmond office, FBI, and I was a young agent. And one of the guys said, "You're from Miami. You familiar with different accents?" I go, "Yeah." I said, "You want to listen to this?" So I listened to what Mohammed was saying and some of his cryptic messages, because he was leaving some really weird stuff out there. And I could listen to it. He had like an accent. And I thought, if I have to guess, I think he's Jamaican. And he was. The guy was born in Jamaica and raised in the United States. So those are some interesting things there.
Oh, wow.
And we were sitting on the payphones and watch these guys. Oh, not when we watch it, but see if we can find them, because they would use the same payphones when they were calling and stuff like that. So that was intense. Eventually he was caught. But then, of course, the follow-up and investigation, we were there for another month. So I got to know this area for 6 weeks, 7 weeks from Florida. So it was definitely something, hopefully. And after 9/11, they weren't calling it a terror situation. But Mohammed, he had changed, and he was a domestic terrorist, pretty much.
What was his motivation? Was it just white people, or?
anger, hate. He was angry at his ex-wife. He was angry. He was just here to cause a lot of problems. He was a very angry person.
So he was just killing indiscriminately, just anybody.
Yeah, he was killing anybody. Yeah, and on any location too. I mean, I remember they were at Home Depots, they were at gas stations, they were set up, and boom, and people were looking for a van. I guess they originally saw a white van leave, and that was the lead, but they wouldn't leave. They would just sit there because you think, oh, it's an empty Chevy Caprice there. You know, it did catch people's attention. It had a New Jersey plate, and that did come up a few times, but it said, oh, there's no record, no way, nothing to really think about it. But they were in there. They were shot, and they were hiding.
Wow.
Yeah.
So was he like a Muslim convert?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, he converted to Islam for sure. He was executed 2009 in Virginia. He was executed, and Bamavo, because he was underage, he's doing life.
How he was like 13, wasn't he?
No, he was like 16, 17. But he was used by this guy, and it's horrible. And tragedies in that one, but that was definitely an intense situation, a big case, and something I remember clearly. And now I'm living in this area, which is something interesting. Which I think some of the location, Ashland, I think of this location here. I think, oh, remember he shot some guys here. They shot someone over here, and you're like all different spots of DC snipers, the Beltway killers, right?
Just what you want to think about, your like beautiful countryside, and then people's heads
Muhammad
exploding.
Here. Yeah,
yeah. Virginia is beautiful. We just drove through there on our vacation to Tennessee, and man, there is. I mean, it looks like Lord of the Rings. You know, like Peter Jackson's Lord of the Rings. There's horses and green pastures, and it's a beautiful place.
I love the Blue Ridge Mountains. Blue Ridge Mountains are gorgeous. Shandor National Park. I do a lot of hiking there. I hiked. I did a book on that too, hiking in Virginia. So if you also like,
you're an animal. You're writing books coming out of your ears.
Man, 1 year I've knocked it out. Hiking in Virginia, beautiful, beautiful, especially. And I took the pictures with all the foliage, which is awesome.
Yeah,
contrast there. All rag. I hiked all rag. Elevation is, for here it's not bad. It was like over 3,000 feet.
Oh, it's pretty good. Yeah,
that's not bad, right?
Yeah, that's like Monadnock here is like 3,300 or something. It's a good hike.
Okay, yeah, it's about the same thing. Mm-hmm. That's not bad. I think it was a good hike, and I did about 6 miles around, and the summit was just amazing. I took some amazing pictures of the summit.
Bet.
So if you like hiking, you like exploring, you like all that, I think you'll like my books. And I also do travel books also, and I even did some kids' books with my daughter.
Was it always something you wanted to do, is be an author? Because it doesn't seem like you're just doing the one-off, here are my war stories stuff. You really love it. I mean, you're doing all kinds of stuff.
Yeah, that's what I told my dad when I was growing up. I want to be a writer because I did fictitious work. I saw Star Wars, and I was young, and I started doing like little, small little fictitious novels like that when I was young, and I liked it, and I got really good at it. As we do a lot of writing. People think you're running and gunning, and like I said, I wore many hats.
Right.
And I would be the case agent too. So guess what? After I did all my deals, I got back. I got to write my reports. I've got to put the property in, and then I also have to do the affidavit. Let's say I want to do a search warrant, an arrest warrant. Well, guess what? I'm doing the affidavits for that too. I'm writing this. I'm going to do a T3. Well, guess what? Now I'm really busy. So I had to get really good at writing a lot, and I wrote a lot. So,
towards the end of your career, where you're like your affidavits for search warrants getting like more and more whimsical. Like, this is more like a Lord of the Rings story. What do you?
Right. Yeah. So, and then after that, I got really into writing. I started dabbing in my autobiography because of the pandemic. Because we started in March 2020. I was at headquarters, but all of a sudden everything got shut down.
Yeah.
I'm working from home. And that act director at the time challenges us to do something else, something creative, get your mind. Because of course we didn't have any, really getting a brain fart here, vaccines, right, for it. So people were dying, getting sick, right? So keep your head. I started dabbling in it, but I still had a lot of work to do. So I kind of started. Once I retired, then I was able to hit some more. But I started doing the political books first because I really had a passion for politics, right?
Yep.
In my first book I wrote, and these are short reads again. If you're not a big reader, that's okay. These are short reads and not really expensive.
I like short reads.
Yeah, if you're a Kindle Unlimited subscriber in Amazon, all my books are free for you. So you can enjoy all my books for free. So you don't have to worry about that. But even if you're not, all my books are under $10. Most of my books are under $5. So
That's cool.
it's really not too bad. So the first one I did was Communist China, the evil empire, and why they should never host Olympic Games. This is the second time Beijing has hosted the games, right? You had the Summer Games in 2008, and now the Winter Games just happened.
Yeah.
And I said, why would the IOC, this is in the International Olympic Committee, make such a horrific decision with especially China's horrific human rights, atrocious human rights records, right?
Right.
The ethnic Muslims being destroyed out there in northwest China.
Yeah, they're like sterilizing them.
Destroying them. It's unacceptable. Tibetans, same thing. They're being forced out. They don't like them praying all day. And what they do to these poor people is put them in labor camps.
They hate Christians too.
They don't like Christians. They like the Hmong culture. That's what they want. They don't want a diverse ethnicity. They want one. The Hmong culture is the only thing they want, and they do a reason to do it. And then if you're not a part of the CCP, the Communist Chinese Party, then of course bad things are going to happen to you. Either you're going to end up in prison, they're going to execute you. Look at the poor doctors, the whistleblowers, right? With the Wuhan virus.
Oh
right?
yeah.
They all disappeared or they died.
Right.
It's like you can't
writings
do
on the
anything.
wall.
Hong Kong, the same thing. Those poor people who were protesting for their freedom, they caused them big problems. So I was like, the only conclusion you come up with is that they were bribed. There's no other way any committee or anyone should select China again other than that they got paid off.
Right.
And that's the only conclusion you come up with. That's the only one. So I wrote that one, and then I did a book on Fast and Furious with the cartels and explained a little bit about that. And then I realized I had a background with organized crime, right? So I started writing the books on the one percenters. I just did a really good book on Sonny Barger. He just passed away. It says Full Throttle, Riding with the Hells Angels. And I also did one on Taco Bowman from the Outlaws, and also one from Cavazos from the Mongols, Doc Cavazos. So if you're interested in one percenters, organized crimes, the mafia, street gangs, prison gangs, you name it, Yakuza. I even did a book on Yakuza. It got really popular now. Yeah.
When did ATF Undercover come out? Your bigger book?
That came out in February.
Oh, okay. So, is that the one? I mean, do you have a multi-link I can put in the show notes, or is it? Do you want me to just put this one in the link?
Yeah, I can forward that to you.
Okay. Yeah, I'll put it in the show notes. I'll put it on the website, and we'll get out there the best we can. I mean,
I appreciate it.
Yeah, of course. It's the ATF Undercover one. Is it like a bunch of little stories, or is it like a chronological thing up through your career?
Yeah, I talk about my life. I talk about the good and the bad and the ugly with ATF. Talk about my cases in there, and I give solutions to some of the problems we just talked about too.
like that.
Unfortunately, ATF, like any agency, has its problems, right? And nothing's worse where you're making big cases and you have to deal with two bad things: bad supervisor or poor prosecutor. That would ruin your cases. You put the time in, you get a bad prosecutor. Man, you pretty much throw your time away because you just mess up the case. Unfortunately, I imagine you're in too. They can pick and choose their cases, which I don't think is right. I think if you have the probable cause, you made a good case, you should have to be able to take it. They don't. So I talk about a lot of the problems in the federal system too that we have to go through. So I'm a motivated guy, so I was still able to overcome obstacles, but you don't see that with some people. Some people just get, like I said, the morale gets broken. You get a supervisor who rides you, doesn't support you.
Right.
It's over.
And they become like a pariah they shut it down. They become like a malcontent. I know it's like that all over police work. I know lots of cops that were like good street guys that got reined in or reprimanded for doing good police work, and they were like, no, I guess just the next 21 years will just be me coasting. I'm not going to go out of my way to do anything then, which sucks. That's what bad management does. It destroys morale. Where can people get ATF Undercover?
Amazon. It's exclusive on Amazon. You type in my name. You see it right there, Ignacio Esteban or Ignacio J. Esteban, either way. You see ATF Undercover, and you have all my books there, almost 50. And my 50th book,
that's crazy.
I just finished 47th on El Chapo. I'm doing 48 and 49. I'm not sure which way I want to go with. If I want to go back with the mafia, some people have asked me to do one on the Marcelo crime family out of New Orleans, which I think is pretty interesting too. And my 50th book it's going to be how I wrote 50 books in 1 year.
Yeah, that's funny. Well, brother, I really appreciate you coming on. I feel like you have more stories. I know you do. I feel like you could come on again, do a part 2 almost down the road.
I've been on these shows 3, 4, and 5 parts already. That's
awesome. I love it.
Yeah.
Thank you, sir. It's an honor to have you on. I really appreciate it. We're going to put your the link to your books in the show notes and on the website. And you have any social media you're trying to build up or anything like that?
Sure, of course. Facebook page.
Okay.
I have quite a bit of things also. You also find all my stuff on my Facebook page, LinkedIn also. I post all my stuff on LinkedIn. And if you go to YouTube, man, you can see all these great videos, obviously with you. And I've done almost 25 shows since March.
All under your name?
Ignacio Esteban, Ignacio J. Esteban. You can see them. Unfortunately, a couple of them, funny stories, like I say, you deal with gangsters sometimes, man. These guys, they got banned from YouTube because one thing you can't, and I've learned this because, I didn't know the difference between a podcast and a YouTube show. I thought it was all the same. And people say, no, the podcast is audio only. You put a YouTube, you do some people do both. They kind of do audio and video and they put it all together. But these places do not play when you start talking about, they're pushing the 2,000 Mules, right?
Oh,
the
yeah.
election being stolen,
sure.
Or they're talking about the COVID being bogus.
Yeah.
Bro, they got banned.
Yeah.
I said, don't say that. These guys don't play, and you get banned, and that's it.
Yeah.
I mean, it doesn't apply to them, people. Freedom of speech doesn't. It's only a certain amount.
I know. It sucks.
He lost all his shows. So I had a few in there. You had a few there. So, that's sometimes you notice that. You do the time, and sometimes the shows disappear because the guys mess up a little bit.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah, I've seen it happen a million times. Absolutely. All right, brother. Well, I appreciate you coming on the show. Awesome interview. Appreciate your time. And, we'll be in touch in the future.
Sounds good, Steve. Be safe.
All right, brother. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hey, guys. That was episode number 116. What a great episode. Man, he's got a lot of stories. Definitely going to have him back. I appreciate all your support, guys. I appreciate the 5-star reviews on Apple. If you could keep doing that. If you can't become a patron and support the show like that, that's fine. The show is free. But if you could go to Apple and just do the 5-star review, that's huge. I really appreciate it. Been getting a ton of them lately. Once in a while, we will get a hater on there or a few. I've had one time a few years ago, the haters organized and they gave me a bunch of 1-star reviews because they hate police officers, not because they listen to the show or anything like that. So the 5-star reviews counteract that. I'm back up to 4.95 stars. There's almost I think there's 740 reviews at this point, which is fantastic. Another thing I noticed, which is weird, the show isn't. When you Google search the show, typically it comes up like number 1 or 2 for law enforcement or police podcasts. Not happening anymore. I don't know why. It is one of the most popular, most listened to police podcasts out there. So I don't know, guys. We gotta fight the powers that be. We gotta keep those 5 stars coming in. That's all I'm saying. I appreciate you guys. Take care, and I'll see you next time.